having a split. That's a little bit short. Rebound is tapped though, controlled by the Jayhawks. Near side three, book that for Marcus McGowan at 7-5.
Another person that will shoot it from anywhere is Marcus McGowan.
This is the Westmoreland on the Hardwood podcast on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Here are your hosts, Jack Ridenhour and Sean Myers.
And welcome back to another playoff edition of the Westmoreland on the Hardwood podcast here on our Westmoreland Sports Network YouTube channel. You know who we are by now, Sean Myers, Jack Ridenhour. And Jack, another jam-packed show with a lot of playoff talk. In this one, we will talk about some of the biggest stories. We'll also have plays of the week. Our team of the week will be playing for a championship once again, the Greensburg Central Catholic Centurions Gals, and a look ahead at a massive week with some championship implications in the WPIAL. But we begin with our biggest takeaways, our starting five, and we'll start with the team that we both have had a chance to see this past season, Penn-Trafford girls. It felt like maybe they'd have an opportunity to play for a championship. Ultimately, they come up one game short. They fell against Thomas Jefferson in the semifinals, 69-41 in favor of the Jaguars. This was after they won the rubber match against Indiana area. So a really good season for PT. It will continue. Most of the teams that make it past the first round will have a chance to at least earn their way into the state playoffs, if not having already qualified. But it's got to be a little disappointment that they weren't able to get that win to make it down to the Pete.
I think it's even more disappointing that it's the second straight year getting bounced out by Thomas Jefferson. And it just seems that for whatever reason, the Jaguars just had the number of Penn-Trafford each and every single year running into the playoffs. But give a lot of credit to this Penn-Trafford team because you go to the semifinals, you make another deep run in the playoffs. This was a very successful last 2 years for this Penn-Trafford program. And let's not forget, Sean, we mention it all the time. This is a very young team. You've got Rhea Johnson coming back, Izzy Fontana coming back, just to name a few. You've got a lot of players that will be back for at least 2 more years potentially. So this is a team that you've got a lot of things you can build off from this season, winning a couple playoff games. I mean, the confidence that a team gets from winning playoff games, especially when you're a young team, and I know we'll talk about some young teams here in a little bit that came up short in the playoffs, but when you can win some playoff games, and I felt that the game against Indiana, that was a really big game for them to win. You lost the last meeting, you missed out on being outright section champs, losing a really close one to Indiana, mind you. You get revenge in the playoffs. That's got to be a nice little confidence boost for Chuck Fontana and this group moving into next year. But I think ultimately what really hurt Penn-Trafford, you get outscored 24-6 in the fourth quarter, and you make only 3 threes in the second half. And I think a team that, I don't want to say lives and dies by the 3-point shot, but is awfully close to being in that world, that's what happens. And I think just from that, after that first quarter, Penn-Trafford was out of rhythm and could never get back into that groove.
And it's interesting that, as you mentioned, 24-6 in the final quarter. And sometimes that makes a game that's much closer look like it's a blowout because the final score certainly is, almost mercy rule territory, but some context to it is much closer game heading to the fourth. And I've seen Thomas Jefferson this season. They're a star-studded group. I mean, talent-wise, there's very few that can match up with the Jaguars. Emma Altavilla had 23 points for them. We know Maggie Spell's one of the most accomplished players in the WPIAL. So no shame losing to TJ. Last year, I think it was a surprise. PT was the better seed. This year, a lot of people expected Thomas Jefferson to be playing for a championship. That's how it plays out. One player that will be moving on of note is Tori DeStefano. Now, her senior season's not done. They get a third-place matchup against Peters Township. They are state playoff bound as well. We'll see if they can regroup and make a run. And that wouldn't be the first time that a PT girls team came up shy of a championship and then made a run in the state tournament, because it's happened a couple of times now with the softball team. But a great first season for Chuck Fontana, and I'm sure they'll look to try to make another surge heading into the state tournament. Well, a team that suffered heartbreak a week ago, the Hempfield area boys, just a deflating loss at Seneca Valley, 45-44. Jack, it felt like a game that they had won. 2 foul shots with less than 2 seconds left gave the host Raiders the victory. And what was a season of great progress for Austin Butler, I'm sure will leave a sour taste, a bitter taste in the mouth of many of those Spartans.
And it's not like this was a game where I felt Hempfield threw it away, right? It wasn't like there were major miscues down the stretch. They were making free throws when needed. times they were making both free throws. They were making one of two. Really, I felt it was Seneca Valley that had a couple plays that bounced their way down the stretch. I really felt that in this game, and I think Austin Butler was even quoted saying that he felt the execution offensively down the stretch was exactly what he wanted. Forced Seneca Valley to foul them when needed, made the free throws when needed. But again, a massive three-pointer made down the stretch by Jackson Householder off of an offensive rebound. It's plays like that that are killers. And I think that, for Hempfield, this was a situation where it was the first time, and again, Coach Butler even said it, first time a lot of these players had a situation like this in their career at Hempfield where you've got a chance to go to a semifinals. I couldn't even tell you the last time that Hempfield boys basketball has had a chance to go that far in the playoffs. Let's not forget.
Jason Harrell and Tony Pilato were probably suiting up for them when they had a chance to make it to the semis.
And I think you also look at it and zoom out of it as a big picture. You look at how last year ended, right? Coach in the middle of the season, not with the team anymore. You finish out the season with a different head coach. Just kind of a mess of an unraveling of last year. And you come back this year and have the change that you did. I mean, really, I think an incredible bounce back for Austin Butler and Hempfield. But ultimately, like you said, Sean, it's going to definitely feel like a very long, bitter taste in the mouth of the Spartans. And it's going to be a long offseason for them as well. But a lot of promise going into next season for sure.
15 wins for Hempfield area. That's a major accomplishment. Now, they were up 4 points with 19 seconds left. Danny Husenitz did miss a couple foul shots late, and then they committed the foul, and Andrew Omisitz hit two on the other end. So I'm sure that Butler and those players, they're going to be replaying those sequences in their mind. But again, sometimes you tip your cap. Also, it helps being the team at home. Had it maybe been seated the other way, where Hempfield's the 4 seed, Seneca Valley's the 5, and that game's being played in Greensburg, maybe it's a different outcome. But it is a great learning experience for the players that will be back, and certainly a foundation, a great one at that, was set in Butler's first season. Well, a team that's had a championship foundation for over a decade now is the Norwin Knights girls. And it was a kind of a surprise hero in their victory against Hempfield area that led the way. Lennon Brozeski, the daughter of the head coach, had not scored in double digits all season. She came out and scored 17 in the first half. Her hot shooting led them past Hempfield 57-42. Jack, I was on the call the first quarter. I really thought, okay, Hempfield's going to hang around. They're going to really pressure Norwin. They're going to put, they're going to test the mettle of this championship team for the Knights. But it changed quickly in the second quarter. Things turned completely upside down, and the biggest reason was Lennon Brozeski could not miss. And so ultimately, they win pretty convincingly. They're headed back to the semifinals, a spot that they're very accustomed to.
I think that if you are Hempfield girls basketball, kind of similar to the boys, you have to feel really good about this year, because I know that past seasons we've talked about how they come out really strong and then they wind up falling apart down the stretch of the year. Felt like it was very different for Hempfield girls this year. And ultimately you run into a team that, like you mentioned, has championship pedigree and has the expectation of being in the championship, if not at the bare minimum, being in the conversation for it. And I think that when you've got, and again, the example of Lennon Brozeski having a day, that just shows you the problem that Norwin presents to its opponent. You don't know who's going to hit you in the mouth, but you're going to get hit in the mouth. And when you've got a player that we've seen throughout this year, she's in an 8-player rotation, but she's coming off the bench, not necessarily being that headlining offensive act. And when you've got that coming from your 6th, 7th, 8th player, and especially in a big game like that too, Sean, that's a ginormous thing to have in your back pocket, knowing that. And we've seen it in the past. Ava Christopher a couple years ago in the WPIAL championship game played a miraculous game, played really well down the stretch of the season as well in the playoffs. And now this year, you've got Christopher getting healthier. She's getting back into the fold.
They've not lost a game when she's played, or at least when she's played a full game.
And there's the difference right there. When you have your leader back out there, and it's not just the play, it's the calming presence. You've been to 2 championships. You've been to the Pete. You know what that's like. When you've got somebody there in the locker room that has that knowledge, I mean, that is a wonderful thing to have at your disposal. And I think for Norwin going up against Upper St. Clair, it should feel pretty confident knowing that it came off of again, albeit maybe at times not the prettiest of ball games, but when it mattered and when it was needed, Norwin eventually was able to pull away.
Yeah, so they head back to the semifinals. They'll see a familiar opponent that we'll discuss a little bit later. Ava Shipman and Lily Hotown with 14 points apiece in the loss for the Spartans. Well, Belle Vernon area girls, they looked like they might be a team that would play for a championship or at least make it to a semifinals. Not the case. They dropped a rivalry matchup against Elizabeth Forward. They had defeated the Warriors twice during the regular season. The second time basically gave them that section title that had been so elusive. Not since the 1990s had they won a section crown. Well, you can never take that away, but EF took away their chance to play for a semifinals spot. And ultimately, it's a great season, a big step forward, but much like what we said about the Penn-Trafford girls, Jack, there's got to be some disappointment for Cornelius Nesbitt's squad. But the silver lining for them is they returned the vast, vast majority of that squad going forward. And they're another team that gets to play through the consolation round as well.
And it's hard to beat a team 3 times. It's really, really hard to do that, especially when you're going up against a team that you see pretty frequently and you're going up against other like opponents. So if you expand that, the opportunities to see the other team play is a lot. It is constant. And so you're not really able to, at this point of the season, hide things. You can't be real secretive with your offensive sets. You've pretty much showed your hand at the card game, and everybody knows what you're going to do. But I think for Coach Nesbitt, like you said, you've got a really young team that is incredibly talented. Isis Almighty having 18 points. That is going to be something that is going to be for Belle Vernon a moment where, hey, remember when Isis went off when, we were freshmen and sophomores in the playoffs, and now she's doing that at the Peterson Event Center as a junior or senior in the championship game? These are going to be the moments that I think Belle Vernon will look back at when it is, and I really do think it's going to be a championship caliber program in years to come. They'll look back at this loss against an experienced EF team that, again, I'm sure had the mindset of, they're not going to beat us a third time. They're not going to beat us a third. And that's a tough way to go out, and it's also a really hard opponent to go up against. But this is, I think, a great learning moment for Belle Vernon as a program, knowing that, hey, we got some playoff experience under our belt as a young team, and now we can apply that moving forward. I think the future's awfully bright for the Leopards.
And it seemed like foul trouble was a recurring theme in the matchups between these schools. This time, Aubrey Brown was really limited by foul problems. She had some issues when they played the second time in the regular season, but she was able to get back out there and really take the game over in the third quarter. Well, this time she had more foul issues, and it limited her both the second and third quarter of this game. And on the other side, when they won the regular season matchup at home, the Leopards were able to take advantage of some foul woes that Kaylin Settles had. Well, she was a double-double player in this game, 14 points and 10 rebounds as well. So give credit to EF. They move on, as we mentioned. The Leopards enter the consolation round. Well, a team that's not in the consolation round, but rather trying to go back to the Pete and play for another championship, the Jeannette boys. They are now in the semifinals, courtesy of a victory against Eden Christian Academy, 52-36. Jace Powell, their leading scorer in that game. They have 3 guys averaging double digits this season. Jack, no surprise, they returned their entire starting 5 from last year's championship program. This was a big win for them because it wasn't their best game. It was a kind of grinded out, ugly, low scoring game. They typically like to get up and down and score much higher than 52 points, but they showed that they could adapt and win in a number of different ways. And so they are headed for a third showdown against Clairton. Ironically enough, they beat the Bears twice in regular season. You mentioned how difficult that is to do it again, but I'm sure they're glad to have that opportunity to go 3 for 3 against a rival school.
Let's not forget, Sean, Jeannette was a victim of 3 losses last year to Greensburg Central Catholic. Could not get over the hump there.
3 losses in the season.
Exactly. So it's an interesting adage to follow because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I think this year for this Jeannette team, and you mentioned the gritty win, I think that's huge before you play a team like Clairton, because Clairton, if you look at the record and if you look at the season, have pretty much been the only team that have really given Jeannette any sort of trouble, true trouble, at least somewhat consistently. And the last meeting was only a 4-point win for Jeannette, and they barely got over that 52-point mark at 54 points. So,
and the Jayhawks said that environment at Clairton was, I think, Powell in particular,
the craziest.
It's the loudest he's ever been in.
He said by far the loudest he had ever played in, by a mile. He said that place gets loud. So having this game at a neutral site, I think, could also be a massive factor. But for Jeannette, getting that kind of initial gritty win out of your system now and not having to do it the game before the championship game, that's a huge sigh of relief, I think, for Coach Batts, because you've got that one out of the way. You put that one out of the way. You can put that one to bed. You can flush it, and you can move on to Clairton. But I really see this kind of shaking out to be a Jeannette Swickley Academy meeting in the championship, Sean. I think it's real, and if that does happen, man, oh man, is that going to be a really good one, because those two put on a show last year during the playoffs.
Yeah, I think you and I had the call of it at Fox Chapel. It obviously went in favor of Jeannette as they won the 2A title. Well, we'll continue now with our plays of the week, and we'll begin with the Norwin girls. As a star was born on Friday night, Lennon Brozeski erupted for 17 points in the first half, the first time she scored double digits in a game all season. Her final three of that half gave the Knights a stranglehold heading into the locker room, as detailed by myself and Greg Bizignani.
And Lena Hissman. So if they can get any type of offensive contribution from those players, it helps a lot as the Knights continue to get offensive contributions from their reserve. Brozeski does it again.
Just ready to shoot, gets that shot off quick. Great follow through. Doesn't even hit the rim.
She has 17.
Great stuff from Brozeski, and I'm sure no one was happier to see that than her father, who also doubled as her head coach. We'll continue plays the week with Penn-Trafford girls, talking about a father-daughter combination. They've got fun as well, and ultimately they lost in the semifinals, but the Warriors won the rubber match against Section Foe Indiana area in the prior round, and it was Tori DeStefano's crafty finish that helped push PT across the finish line, with John Flickinger and Mark Katarski providing the cap.
We got 34-21 game, and this is where Indiana has an opportunity here if they can step up the defense. Stefano, nice drive all the way, right hand, and score. How'd she do that? Houdini way. Just a really, really good athlete in control of her body and has a knack to score at the rim.
We keep moving with plays of the week, and the Franklin Regional boys. The Panthers saw their season end with a home loss to Shaler area, but Anthony Mitchell did his part, going the length of the court to keep his team in the lead in the third quarter, with Jack and Greg Bizignani on the call.
Holt snares the miss. But a lost opportunity for the Titans. Mitchell coast to coast.
There you go. That's your first transition basket there.
Booked a one-way ticket to Bucketown, and he extends the lead for Franklin Regional.
Great play all the way around by Anthony Mitchell, and ultimately a tough loss for Franklin Regional, but I think a great sign moving forward. This is a team that can really grow into next year.
And we will wrap up plays of the week at the college ranks with the Pitt Greensburg men. The Bobcats wrapped up their regular season on a high note Saturday with a home win against Pitt Bradford, securing the number 2 seed in the AMCC tournament. Trent Rosich, as usual, he led the way, setting the tone early with a steal and stuff narrated by myself and Roger Down.
And a steal by Rosich. And there goes Trent, and he will throw it down.
Trent Rosich, also a senior from Johnstown, Richland High School. What a physical specimen he is.
7-0, a terrific start for Pitt Greensburg here on senior day, trying to...
Good stuff there for UPG. Chris Klimchuk has done such a great job getting that team to become a championship contender, and they get a bye now to the semifinals. Well, we will continue Hardwood podcast here with our team of the week. And Jack, this is a team that probably has been a candidate pretty much the entire season. The Greensburg Central Catholic Centurions girls, 19-6. They did finish as runner-up in the section, but they're going to have a chance for some redemption. The team that edged them will be their opponent this upcoming week. 12-2 out of 3A Section 2. And what they did in the semifinals blew me away. I thought it would be a very tough matchup against Beaver Falls in that 2-3 seed. Well, it was anything but a tough matchup. GCC wins in a rout, 67-30. It was 43-11 at the half. They are absolutely locked in. Even their coach, Chris Cattell, said that's maybe the best game that they've played all season, and maybe even going back a few seasons.
Well, I think that this is a team that it clearly is very confident in itself, and it's showing that in its biggest form. And I think the reason why you have a player like Abby DeLugos back in the lineup, not having her last year, I know obviously did not have the end of the world impact with them eventually winning a championship. But when you have her back this year, I think that gives everybody that extra added motivation. It's another senior you're playing for. It's another teammate that you're trying to win for. It's another friend that you're trying to play one more game with. And when you have that aspect in there and in the fold, that's a very scary team. And the same on Shadyside's end. That's also a very good team that's got a lot of experienced players that have a lot of Karis Thomas is one of the top guards in the WPIAL right next to Erica Gribble. I mean, this is a true box office type of basketball matchup between these two teams that have really made a little rivalry for themselves. But I think that GCC, just the job that they've been able to do and be so consistent year in and year out, because you've got a lot of teams coming after you, Sean, when you win. A lot of teams. And they're still able to be so dominant and so the separation is so glaring from
and they're playing up in classification as well, which isn't often
exactly. So I think that is something to keep in the back of everyone's mind. This is a GCC team that, I mean, they're playing hungry, they're playing angry, they're playing out like they have a goal in mind, and that is to win another championship. So this one is going to be a fun one. Again, this is, let's face it, Sean, I think the last couple championships for them, it's like, hey, we have another shot at this. Or for the, at least for, the class of Erica Gribble and Jayla Peterson, we've got another chance at this. This is their last chance now to make one more title run. This is all she wrote for this team and this senior. So how they go out is going to be a really interesting thing to watch. But I'm really excited to see how that championship plays out.
Well, one reason why I think they certainly deserve to be the team of the week, not just what they did in the semifinals against Beaver Falls, a team that has been very good defensively but had no answers when Gribble goes for 27, and Avery Jones, who's really come to life recently, had 13 points, 15 boards. But it was also the game before that. They won 57-42 against Our Lady of the Sacred Heart, and it was the Chargers who ended their season in the state tournament last year. So that's a little bit of a redemption story as well, and they blew out Mohawk in the opening round of the playoffs 67-21. They're outscoring their opponents by nearly 30 points per game this season, Jack, and it's not just Gribble, who is one of the most decorated players in Westmoreland County history, boys or girls, and certainly we've known that for a long time. It's not just Peterson, but you mentioned DeLugos. Avery Jones has stepped up in a big way recently. Nolan Altoff, Quinn O'Rourke. They, I think, are maybe a little bit deeper, especially if fully healthy, as opposed to last year and a couple of years ago, and they won championships both of those seasons, even without great depth.
And when you have that kind of feeling of now we've got those extra players, we've got that extra personnel, you can get a little bit more creative, maybe it'll be a little bit more aggressive in your approach defensively or offensively. But again, I think you look at it as this is a team where you're going up against a Shadyside team that has gone up against JCC a ton of times, very similar to how we've mentioned with Jeannette playing Clareton and BVA playing EF. When you see these teams over and over again, it's hard to be inventive and to be fresh and to have a new idea. It's very, very hard to do. So I think that this is just going to be a game, and I think for GCC, it really just boils down to who's going to be the better team overall. It's not going to be schematics. It's not going to be any of that. It's going to be who can just simply execute and go and score when needed. And I mean, you got two really good scoring guards out front, Sean. But this has been a GCC team that, I mean, let's face it. I mean, they've really built a dynasty in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah, that will be 7:00 on Thursday down at the Pete. Shadyside and GCC. Once again, a rematch of last year's championship game. Well, let's look ahead at all the games, semifinals, consolation, and championship this week for Westmoreland County. We'll start on the boys' side. I will have the call of Clareton at Jeannette, audio broadcast, certainly if you want to tune into that one, if you're not able to pony up the money to watch it. It's a great alternative. I'm excited to bring that one from Norwin High School on Monday. Also on Monday, consolation games. Belle Vernon area, which lost to Quaker Valley, is at Hopewell. Southmoreland at Mohawk. Ligonier Valley at Seton LaSalle. Tuesday, Monessen against Nazareth Prep. On girls' side, Tuesday, Upper St. Clair, Norwin. What a matchup that will be. That also a championship rematch. That will be a game that will be highly anticipated. Peters Township at Penn-Trafford in a consolation in the Battle of PTs. Wednesday, a consolation for Belle Vernon hosting South Park. And then Thursday, as we mentioned, GCC and Shadyside down at the Pete. We will have coverage of that. And then also a big week in college hoops, Jack. You know all about this. Tuesday, PAC playoff games. St. Vincent at Westminster on the men's side. Westminster at St. Vincent on the women's side. Wednesday, you and I will be together. Pitt Johnstown at Seton Hill for a twin bill, women's, men's. And then Saturday, Edinburgh at Seton Hill. That'll be a really, really good women's matchup. We will have coverage of that as well on WSN. So what are you looking most forward to?
I'm curious about Penn-Trafford and Peters, my friend. The battle of the PTs. Can Penn-Trafford kind of flush the last one and think about, like you were kind of alluding to the 2019 softball team losing the district championship, winning the state title. Hey, you know what? I think state's cooler than district gold, but that's just me. But that's what jumps out to me. And I think obviously, again, GCC and Shadyside. I mean, you want to talk about not just the matchup, but when you've got Karis Thomas and Erica Gribble, two guards that we're going to be see playing some pretty high level basketball in the next few years. That's going to be a treat, and I think a great matchup for girls basketball in this area.
Bearcats girls going to defend home court against Westminster?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I'll be on the call.
First year head coach, things are going pretty well there for him.
Yeah, so far, so yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Coach Cam Gissendanner's done a great job. She did a great job at La Roche. Moved right on over to St. Vincent. I believe I'll actually be with Jimmy Petruska on the call, the old St. Vincent women's coach. So should be a really good one. And I know that it was a pretty lopsided one in the regular season between the two. So hopefully Westminster brings a little bit of a bigger swing on Tuesday.
Well, what a great week it's going to be. Semifinals, championships, postseason for college basketball as well. It is a big time week on the Hardwood here in Westmoreland County. Well, Jack, we're going to have at least one more show that we'll bring next week, but we'll put a bow on this one. For my partner, Jack Ridenhour, Sean Myers signing off. We'll catch you again next time. Westmoreland on the Hardwood podcast right here on our YouTube channel.
This is the Westmoreland on the Hardwood podcast on the Westmoreland Sports Network.